Listening is the way we befriend the life we're given.
Our friendship with everything larger than us opens us to the wisdom of source.
This is the work of being.
Our friendship with experience opens us to the wisdom of life on earth.
This is the work of being human.
Our friendship with each other opens us to the wisdom of care.
This is the work of love. These eternal friendships are intertwined and inseparable.
We need to listen with their wisdom if we can have any hope of living a way of life.
We welcome you all this morning and hope that you will find the way and the life of this community life-giving for you. I encourage you this morning to take time, particularly with the music that's been selected, to enter deeply into it and to let it offer to you a way of preparing for the words that Dawn has prepared this morning. Let's take time now and begin this careful practice of listening.
Is it afternoon yet? Oh, okay then. Good morning. My name is Don, and I'm not a preacher. I point that out because I didn't want you to have your expectations, too high. Perhaps we'd be more comfortable if we define our roles for this morning. Well, okay, I'd be more comfortable. So here goes. My job is to share some stuff I've been thinking a lot about this past week. And your job is to listen and decide whether what I've been thinking a lot about you could care less about. So if you finish your job before I finish my job, feel free to leave. Okay, now that we know what our jobs are about, let's get to work. I'm assuming that since we're here, we are all spiritual seekers in one way or another. And you regular Fountain Streeters, I know you're here to grow your souls. I know that because Fred keeps telling us that's why we're here. But seriously, don't get hung up on the terminology. Some people want to grow their understanding. Some are seeking enlightenment. Many of us just want to be better people, kinder, more accepting. Perhaps you have some specific goal, like controlling your temper or your hurtful so-called humor. And some may be seeking a fuzzier goal, just to wake up and stop going through the world on autopilot. So no matter how simple or narrow your goal, or how broad and encompassing, my message is threefold. One, it can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done. Two, you'll need help, but help is available. And three, it will require practice. Now, this would be a good place, I think, to back up a bit and explain how I arrived at this place, at this time, with this mission. I was born in Flint, but I have a very early connection with Fountain Street Church. You see, I was raised in a good Methodist family, and according to Norman McLean, who wrote A River Runs Through It, Methodists are Baptists who can read. And Fountain Street started as a Baptist church, so there you have it. But despite that, my parents did believe in thinking outside the box, as long as the box in question wasn't the Bible. After I graduated from U of M, I started reading Ayn Rand. I even just subscribed to her newsletter, The Objectivist, which set me on a collision course with my religious upbringing. Religion lost. That's religion with a capital R. Well, eventually, Ayn Rand lost too, but that's a different story. I never gave up on the idea that at our core we are spiritual beings. And I continue to be receptive to insight and understanding of the human condition, regardless of the source, as you might have concluded from the variety of my sources for the quotations and readings today. I remained happily unchurched for the next 50 years. After being a widower long enough for loneliness to replace grieving, one of my fellow badminton players invited me to a gathering of the Fountain Street Singles, and that led me to attend a church service. I wasn't looking for a church and didn't feel the need for one, but I never felt so welcomed and at home. And when Fred declared, "We're not here to save souls, but to grow souls," I was sold, and I became a member a few weeks later. Actually, I joined Fountain Street exactly 9 months ago today. Does anyone know how to spell gestation? The first Fountain Street activity that caught my eye was a 4-hour workshop on the Enneagram. And for those of you not familiar with it, the Enneagram is a 9-sided symbol that embodies a lot of ancient wisdom about personality types. And in recent years, it's been blended with modern psychology, which helps us understand how we got to be who we are. And that makes it an exceptionally fine tool for, surprise, growing the soul. The workshop was a bare bones introduction that really got my attention. So I signed up for the 6-month course called Life 2.0. There were 6 of us in the class. And our amazing leader and coach was Michael Cohen, and what a journey it was. Each of us made a commitment to the growth goal he or she had selected. After a couple of months of working with Mike, I finally accepted his suggestion to broaden my commitment. Now note that we don't say, I am committed to. We say, I am a commitment to. Because the point is to embody our commitment, to internalize it, to live it. So here's mine. I'm a commitment to sharing wisdom and inspiring others through art, words, and music. It was really difficult for me to accept at first because it felt like I was proclaiming, I am a wise man, and I'm not. But I finally realized I had accumulated bits of wisdom from surviving the ups and downs of several decades. Don't tell anyone, but in 3 weeks I'll be celebrating the 15th anniversary of my 65th birthday. Thanks. By savoring the good times from those 7 decades and learning from the bad, supplemented by reading and studying and listening, I had in fact accumulated some understanding, some insights, some bits of wisdom, thank you, Mike, about myself, about people, about growing, aging, loving, about growing. And that gets us back to the subject at hand. Now, I'm working on the assumption that virtually all of us here are interested in growing our soul, or at least curious about it. As I said, don't be put off by the words. Some might call it discovering your authentic self, or becoming a better person, or a better spouse, or partner, a better parent, or a better boss. Or your desire for improvement might be simply losing 15 pounds. Now that's an oxymoron because there's nothing simple about losing 15 pounds. But my point is the nature of the improvement you want to make doesn't matter. The philosophy or theology behind it doesn't matter. The insight I want to share is that it can still help you achieve it, and that's important. So let me say it another way. No matter what kind of behavior you want to change, whether it's just for your own satisfaction or to benefit someone dear to you, strengthen your relationship, if you want to change any aspect of your behavior, practicing the change is the key to achieving it. Now we'll get back to practicing in a bit. But before you start practicing, you have to make it the decision to change. And there are lots of things that can get in the way of such a decision. But the bigger, more basic the change, the more likely you are to believe that it can't be done, that it's in your DNA. For example, if you always argue with your spouse or partner whenever certain topics come up, especially if you're wind up getting angry when they use certain trigger words or phrases, how many times have you said to the target of your anger or just to yourself, I can't help it, that's just who I am? How many of you had that thought? Not just about anger, about any negative behavior. Now don't raise your hands, just be honest with yourself. Well, I hate to deprive you of your excuse, but you can help it. You can change, because no negative or destructive behavior stems from your true being, from your authentic self or your soul, whatever you call that spark of divinity that dwells within us all. The seeds for such negative habits are sown early as defenses by our immature psyches, which felt they were necessary. And they probably were necessary, because as new dependent human beings, we can't make rational decisions about our environment or the people around us. We simply react to the stimuli coming at us and sense what we have to do to survive. And that works. This is proof. We're all living proof of that. But now, as rational adults, we no longer need those childhood defenses. Unless, of course, you're one of those Tim read to us about this morning, sleepers going through life on autopilot. But surely no one here is a sleeper. We can all observe ourselves. We can all make choices. So the first thing in making a choice is to grow is to recognize that you have a problem, or at least an area where you want to do better. Then to have any chance of succeeding, you have to really, really, really want to change. Just thinking you'll change because you ought to doesn't cut it. Here's an example of that. Now, I was a smoker from my early 20s to my mid-30s. I knew I ought to quit, so I did. Over and over and over. Finally, I quit telling myself that I ought to quit because it was pointless. My subconscious didn't care about ought to. It only knew how cool it was to smoke, how good it felt to light up. So I quit telling myself I had to quit and started telling myself what a stupid, messy, smelling, expensive thing it was. And after weeks of that self-talk, I started telling myself, I don't want to be a person who has to have a cigarette to get through the next moment, whatever it is. I never told myself again I had to quit. But one day, I thought, I'm not going to buy another carton this week. I'll just see how it goes. And I didn't smoke another cigarette. Now, doing something like that with only yourself is easier than making a major relationship change, but it illustrates what I mean when I say you must really, really want the change. For whatever change you want to make, you already have a habit in place, even if it's just ignoring the situation. And that's the beginning of the hard work I mentioned, because old habits can be stubborn things. So before you try to replace it with a new habit, you need to think about the change you want from every angle. What will my new habit look like? What actions will I need to take to make it work? And don't forget to emphasize the positive. Picture how good it will feel when I have it in place. Also analyze what preliminary sign or signs can I watch for to avoid triggering the old habit? If it gets triggered anyway, can I force myself to quickly change direction? Or could I apologize on the spot and say, I didn't want to react like that again. Can we back up a sentence or two and let me try again? This is the part where it takes courage to let yourself be vulnerable. After doing that kind of work, you'll be ready to make an informed and specific commitment to the goal that you want to achieve. And remember the Life 2.0 approach. Say, I am a commitment to losing 15 pounds before my birthday, or I'm going to stop yelling at my spouse whenever, and name the situation that triggers it. Then talk to your spouse or partner or significant other about making the commitment, and chances are good that she or he will become a most willing ally in the process. Having declared your intention to change will help you later when you're tempted to give up the effort. And the discussion that can result from sharing is not only healing in itself, but is very likely to give you some additional insight into the effect of the old behavior on your partner, and perhaps into how it is that you both arrive at the trigger point together. Earlier, I mentioned needing help to make the change. Well, this conversation I'm talking about is the first level, the simplest kind of help to ask for. However, if the situation is one where you believe it would be a mistake to share with the person with whom the problem arises, then declare your commitment with a friend, someone who will cheer you on, offer encouragement, and give you objective feedback. Of course, if you are a person who is inclined to submit your problems to a higher power, and that works for you, by all means do so. Now, I've been talking rather casually about getting inappropriately angry as an example of bad habits, because it's easy to understand. But if someone has a serious anger management problem, it will probably require professional help. But even lesser bad habits can sometimes be the devil to break. So if you're sincerely working on change and it keeps eluding you, counseling or therapy may be the answer. And there's lots of help available in Grand Rapids, all levels of help, many available through United Way, sometimes through your employer, And you can always start right here with the Fountain Street Church, clergy. I want to describe one way that Life 2.0 helped me overcome a long-term detrimental habit. My first wife was, frankly, a disaster. I had many deficiencies, goddess knows, and she never missed a chance to remind me of every single one. My second wife was a wonderful, insightful, considerate helpmate. But despite the great relationship we had, there were a few things she did or said that I didn't think were fair. And I never had the courage to bring them up. None of them was a big deal, but they put some degree of drag on a relationship that didn't need to be there. I always believed in the importance of open communication in a relationship, but often failed to act on it. In Life 2.0, the process of getting in touch with my authentic self and embracing the idea of spiritual growth altered my view of speaking up. I didn't realize it until a couple of months ago. Beep, 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 beep. That's me backing up again. Last fall, I met a wonderful woman in the Fountain Street Singles Group. We shared many engaging, in-depth conversation and a couple of symphony concerts before we realized our affinity was more than casual. So we relinquished the reins and let Mother Nature take her proverbial course. And we're delighted with where she took us. A couple of months ago, when I was heading home after spending an evening with her, I realized that our parting had seemed a little bit cool. Or was it my imagination? But when we met the next day, I asked her if she had been mad at me. She said, no, of course not. But the seed had been planted, and it turned out that I had been offering her advice when none was needed or wanted, which felt to her like I was putting her down or looking down at her from some superior position. Wow, I had no idea it was coming across that way. And I told her that was not the kind of person or partner I wanted to be. We talked until we were sure we understood each other. And suddenly that hazy gray presence that had started to take form between us was gone. Same thing popped up a few more times, but we knew enough to nip it in the bud. On one of those occasions, I realized those were exactly the kind of things my mother used to say that would drive me crazy. Holy inheritance, Batman. That helped me to pretty much banish that kind of attitude. Pretty much, but not entirely, which is another thing to keep in mind about replacing old habits. They can be very stubborn. And my message is, don't be discouraged when they keep popping up. It doesn't mean you failed. Just keep working on it, and you will get better and faster at getting back on track when they do pop up. And at that point, laughter may be your best weapon. Old habits can't stand to be laughed at. But the only way to really conquer an old habit is to practice replacing it with the new behavior. So here we are once again bumping up against my topic. So no more backtracking. It's time to get real. Time to dive headfirst into the nitty-gritty. Everyone is in tune with practicing it as applies to sports and the arts. Like the old saw about the young couple who go to New York and get lost on the Lower East Side. Finally, they spot a cab driver and call out, "How do you get to Carnegie Hall?" Practice. The founder of the Strozzi Institute, where my Life 2.0 guru received his training, wrote an article titled, "You Are What You Practice." This, of course, is the heart of my message. I trust you all recognize that. It'll make me look bad if you miss it on the exam. His article echoed Aristotle when he pointed out that we all recognize through recurrent practice we can learn to swing a golf club or hit a tennis ball or play the piano. So why can't we understand that it's equally possible, and I'm quoting here, to train the muscles of integrity, confidence, collaboration, courage, and empathy? We can build muscles in every dimension of our life, including the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. The catch he explained, went on to explain, is that the practice requires going beyond our comfort zone. But it can be done. Because this truth, that change can only be achieved through practicing the change, is not a part of our common knowledge. Most of our society lives under the hope and fantasy that people and cultures can change simply by being introduced to a new idea. The consequences of this can be a downward spiral of frustration, resignation, and despair. And there's a perfect example of that in the news these days, Iraq. The people have been crushed by Saddam Hussein for 2 generations. We captured him, dismantled his party and his army, smiled beatifically at the people and told them, "You're free at last. Enjoy your new democracy." Another potential stumbling block in our society is that we are constantly bombarded with messages promising instant gratification and fast temporary relief. If we fall for that, it can undermine our resolve to do the hard work necessary to achieve long-term permanent change. Here's some good news. When you practice deliberately going beyond your comfort zone and achieve the change you sought, you will not only reap the benefits of that change, you'll also discover a corollary benefit that's perhaps even more important. You'll discover that your ability to observe yourself, others, and the social environment has grown. And this increased awareness expands your choices, as well as strengthening your will to enact those choices. Now, this is really a biggie, so I want to repeat it. When you choose to practice going beyond your comfort zone, your ability to observe yourself, others, and the social environment grows. And this increased awareness lets you see more possible choices and strengthens your ability to enact those choices. I want to close with some motivation to help you stay the course of practicing the change you select. My aha moment came when reading "You Are What You Practice." In it, Dr. Strozzi Heckler wrote, "At an even more fundamental level, it's necessary to come to terms with the fact that we are always practicing. In other words, the body is incapable of not practicing. And what we practice, we become." Previously, when I felt discouraged about trying to establish a new behavior, my attitude had been, well, if I let go now, all I'm giving up is reaching for a dream. And it was like the whole subject would just evaporate. No big deal. But after reading "We Can't Not Practice," I realized that I wasn't just losing something I never had. I was choosing to reinforce behavior I wanted to change. We've established that practice makes you better at something, haven't we? So by giving up on my new behavior, I would continue to get better at my bad behavior. And that knowledge has helped me to not give up when discouragement was continually whispering, "You can't get there anyway." A while ago, I found an intriguing saying on a friend's Facebook page. To get something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. I hope that these ideas at least inspire some of you to examine your life and relationships and to find some area you want to improve, and then go forth and do something you've never done. Go forth and practice that change. Go forth and practice growing your soul. Amen.